30 to 40% of home purchases contain defects that should have been caught during inspection. The average cost to remediate those defects, research suggests $18,000 to $25,000 in unexpected repairs. That's real money, money you don't have in your budget because you were already stretched by closing costs, which consume 2 to 5% of your entire loan amount. Welcome back to Wealth Frame Research. Today we're breaking down the due diligence trap in home buying, why buyers miss critical inspection steps, what that oversight costs them, and exactly how to avoid becoming another statistic. Let's start with the math. The median home price in 2024 sits at approximately $420,000. For most buyers, this represents the largest single purchase of their life. At current mortgage rates, 30-year fixed loans at roughly 6.8%, you're financing a debt obligation that extends 3 decades. Now imagine 6 months after closing, you discover the roof needs replacement at $12,000. Or the HVAC system has 10 years of life left, not the 15 the seller claimed. Or the foundation has hairline cracks suggesting water intrusion. These aren't anomalies, these are the rule. The due diligence trap isn't about lack of effort. Most buyers do hire inspectors. The trap is about incomplete effort, about checking boxes instead of understanding what the boxes mean, about trusting assumptions instead of verifying facts, and about underestimating how much these mistakes cost when they compound. Let's break down 5 critical errors where due diligence fails. Error 1. Skipping the structural deep dive. Research from the National Association of Home Inspectors indicates that fewer than 15% of home buyers commission a second opinion on structural findings. Yet structural issues represent roughly 40% of post-purchase disputes and repair costs. Here's the problem: a standard home inspection is a visual assessment. Inspectors look at accessible areas, they note obvious damage, they test mechanical systems, but they don't excavate foundations, don't cut into walls, don't extract soil samples, and don't use specialized equipment to detect subsurface moisture migration. A $1,000 general inspection might identify that a basement is damp. A specialized moisture assessment, which costs another $600 to $1,200, reveals whether that dampness indicates failed drainage, a cracked foundation footer, or a perched water table that requires engineered remediation. Consider this scenario: a household purchasing a $400,000 home in a region with high water tables. The general inspector notes the basement has had minor water intrusion after heavy rains. The buyer assumes this is cosmetic. They proceed without a specialized assessment. 18 months later, structural movement is visible. A geotechnical engineer's report costs $3,000. The remediation, installing French drains, repairing the footer, and addressing settling, costs $35,000. That was a $600 assessment away. Why don't buyers commission these deeper inspections? Cost avoidance, delay aversion. Optimism bias, the assumption that if the first inspector didn't flag it severely, it must be manageable. But here's what the data shows. Buyers who commission secondary structural, moisture, and mechanical assessments identify 70% more actionable defects than standard inspections alone. And here's the financial reality most buyers don't calculate. If this home requires a mortgage, and most do your financing repairs you didn't know about, at 6.8%, a $35,000 structural repair, if financed over 30 years, costs you approximately $67,000 in principal and interest. That $600 moisture assessment would have cost less than 1% of the total expense it prevented. Error 2. Misunderstanding what appraisers actually assess. First-time buyers frequently conflate the appraisal with the inspection. They assume the appraiser identifies defects. This is catastrophically wrong. The appraisal serves one purpose: determining property value for lending purposes. The appraiser asks, what is this property worth in the current market? Not, what is wrong with this property? Not, what will break in the next 5 years? Value, that's it. Appraisers walk the property for 20 to 40 minutes. They photograph the exterior and key rooms. They compare recent sales of similar properties. They estimate the home's value to ensure it justifies the loan amount. If the property is mortgaged at 85% of the appraised value, meaning the buyer brings a 15% down payment, then mortgage insurance (PMI) triggers. Current PMI costs range from 0.5% to 1.5% of the loan amount annually, depending on credit score and LTV ratio. Here's where buyers get trapped. They assume that because the appraiser didn't flag a major issue, the issue doesn't exist or isn't significant. But appraisers aren't inspectors. They don't test plumbing, they don't measure roof thickness, they don't assess HVAC efficiency or electrical panel capacity. Research from the American Society of Home Inspectors shows that appraisers and professional inspectors identify different defect categories in roughly 65% of cases. The inspector catches mechanical and structural issues. The appraiser catches value-impacting cosmetics and finishes. A practical example: a home has a 30-year-old roof that visually appears intact from the appraisal distance. The appraiser notes roof appears in serviceable condition. The inspector, climbing on the roof with magnification, identifies that 70% of shingles have 3-tab loss and the decking shows soft spots. Roof replacement costs $12,000 to $18,000 depending on square footage and regional labor rates. The appraiser's serviceable statement didn't mean safe. It meant the property's value wasn't obviously depressed by roof failure yet, but failure is coming, and the buyer, trusting the appraisal, didn't budget for it. The fix: treat appraisals and inspections as entirely separate processes with different goals. Budget for comprehensive inspection regardless of what the appraisal says. Error 3. Accepting as-is language without negotiation. Most purchase agreements include an as-is clause. This phrase, when buyers don't understand its actual meaning, becomes a financial trap. As-is doesn't mean you've waived your right to inspect. It means you're accepting known and unknown defects once you close, provided you had the opportunity to discover them during the due diligence period. The trap is that most buyers treat as-is as don't ask questions. Then, when post-closing repairs become necessary, they have zero recourse. Data from the Council of Residential Specialists shows that in markets with strong seller advantage, where homes sell above asking price, buyers increasingly waive inspection contingencies or accept broad as-is language to remain competitive. In 2023 and early 2024, markets in the Southwest and parts of the Midwest saw 15 to 20% of offers with eliminated inspection contingencies. That's 15 to 20% of buyers surrendering their due diligence race to win a bidding war. Let's model the financial impact. Imagine a home in a competitive market selling at $420,000, the national median. The buyer waives the inspection contingency to strengthen their offer. Post-closing, the HVAC system fails. Replacement costs $7,000 to $9,000 at 6.8% mortgage rates. The buyer now finances this across a 30-year term, essentially paying $14,000 to $17,000 total. Alternatively, the buyer had included a standard inspection contingency. They discover the HVAC is 15 years old with failed capacitors. They negotiate a credit at closing, perhaps $5,000. They budget $5,000 from their own capital. Their repair cost is known before closing. Their surprise is eliminated. The due diligence trap here is assuming as-is is non-negotiable. It rarely is, especially if you're in a standard or buyer's market. Research shows that 40 to 50% of as-is offers can be renegotiated if the buyer discovers major defects during inspection and the seller wants the sale to proceed. Error 4. Timing due diligence too tightly. Most standard purchase agreements allow 7 to 10 days for inspection. This is the minimum, not the ideal. In that 7 to 10 day window, the buyer must schedule the general inspection, attend the inspection, review the report, schedule any secondary inspections, moisture, structural, HVAC-specific, electrical, attend those, review those reports, negotiate repairs or credits, make a go/no-go decision, all of this in 1 week. And if the primary inspector identifies significant issues, secondary inspectors often have 3 to 5 day wait times. What happens? Buyers skip secondary inspections due to time pressure. They negotiate from incomplete information, or they waive contingencies because they're running out of time and don't want to lose the property. Data on transaction timelines suggests that when buyers extend inspection periods to 14 days, which is contractually possible in most markets, they identify 25 to 35% more secondary defects and negotiate an average of $3,000 to $5,000 more in credits or repairs. The research is clear. Rushing due diligence costs more than slowing it down. Error 5. Underestimating cumulative repair costs and financing impact. Final trap. Buyers identify multiple minor defects: a leaking faucet, aging caulk, roof shingles needing replacement in 5 to 7 years, HVAC efficiency declining, and treat them as non-issues because individually they're small. Cumulatively, however, they're substantial. A leaking faucet $200, updated caulking $500, roof preventative maintenance $3,000, HVAC service and minor repairs $1,500. That's $5,200 in repairs. If the buyer didn't budget this, they finance it. At 6.8% over 30 years, $5,200 costs approximately $10,000 total. That's essentially doubling the repair cost through financing. But here's where it compounds further. If these repairs accumulate and the buyer's financial position weakens, job loss, income reduction, unexpected expenses, they become unable to afford even financed repairs. They defer maintenance. The roof leak worsens. The HVAC failure becomes catastrophic. The $5,200 in preventative maintenance becomes $20,000 in emergency repair. The research is unambiguous. Buyers who budget for identified minor repairs at purchase time spend significantly less on repairs over the first 5 years than buyers who defer them. How to avoid the trap. First, extend your inspection period contractually. 14 days instead of 7. Yes, it extends the closing timeline. No, it doesn't materially impact the transaction. Sellers already expect inspections. Second, commission secondary inspections on any flagged defect category. Budget $1,000 to $3,000 for this. It's insurance. Third, separate appraisal expectations from inspection expectations. They're different processes. Fourth, negotiate as-is language. As-is doesn't preclude discussion, it just means you accept the property's actual condition, not the seller's claims. Fifth, budget cumulatively. List every identified defect. Calculate total repair cost. If it's meaningful relative to your financial position and the property's value, renegotiate. If you can't renegotiate and repair costs are substantial,